My mother, मेरा मुंडा अमेरिका पढ़ के आया है, इंजीनियर है, पर एक टाटा बिरला ते अगे मेरा पुत्र. You know, we were a very excited generation, you know, newly independent and all that. My mother left me pretty much to myself to choose. So I chose everything. वो जो करना है कर लो यार. So I was this kind of this split personality who used to be an engineer in the daytime and a hippie at night, you see. Associate producers are the actual producers, who's the operating producer. Ray was he was God, you know, he knew everything. So, you know, he was a man very much involved with, life, he went out amongst the people, He was sitting in an ivory tower doing nothing. So he only became a director to make Gandhi. 18 years this man never gave up. Even though he was ridiculed by his fellow actors, by ecosystem as well. So I'm realizing now that maybe I am a feminist,
Rolling. Suresh Jindal, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Well, you're welcome, really. It's very kind of you. You want to interview somebody like me. Thank you. Yeah. Actually, I was born in a place called Malerkotla. It has now become a district in Punjab. It used to be part of Sangrur district before. You know where Bhagwat Maan comes from? He comes from Sangrur, वहाँ से 12 मील दूर है. Malerkotla has a very interesting history, It was a Muslim state, ruled by Muslim ruler. And the population even now is 70% Muslim. We had no disturbance in 1947. So my family was, in kind of a local manufacturing, of iron and steel things, because that time there was no there were no large factories, तो वो locally लोहार बनाते थे ना, तो हमारे ancestors वो करते थे कि लोहा वगैरह खरीद कर कलकत्ते वगैरह से, then get the local craftsmanship, to make अंगीठीज and tawas and taslas, all those farm implements. तो वो locally बनते थे पहले तो. So that was the family business, So my family had come from Faridkot before that, Then I think about 200 years, 250 years ago, then the Nawab invited them to come to Malerkotla because there was nobody there. And Malerkotla was the second smallest princely state, the 500 princely states of India. The second smallest tha ye, Malerkotla. So we were a Jain family living in a Muslim state, But we used to live right in the midst of the Muslim area. The mohalla that was, the old clan mohalla, all the clan, So near the Nawab's palace, you see. So there was but I didn't spend my childhood there. We came to Delhi in 1948 after partition, only for business purposes. There was, because Malerkotla is still in Indian part of Punjab. So then I went to school, in Mussoorie. See, my father was very high on education, He is the one who started the only girls' school in Malerkotla. Because when my older sister, she was studying, so when she had to go to school, there was no school. So my father said, look, if my daughter can't go to school, how about the other poor people? Where will their daughters go to study, So then he talked to the Nawab of Malerkotla, because Nawab was also very forward-looking. So then the Nawab gave an old run-down building. He said, okay, Lalaji, you take this building, ab isme school bana dijiyega. Because I'm also very keen. Otherwise, my Muslim girls will not go to school also. unless it's an all-girls school, Anyway, so then he sent me to study, me and my sister, younger sister, and my niece, to Mussoorie. Mussoorie was, because all the hill stations, there are all these good missionary schools, good schools. So I went to a school called Hampton Court in Mussoorie. And it only had about 60 kids, less than 60 kids. And half were still foreigners because, it just got independence, So half the kids were still Brits, they were. So I went there as my first schooling at the age of 6, to boarding school. So then I came down to Delhi, modern school. But I was then put in boarding because I was the youngest of all the siblings, you see. My brothers were much older than me. And my father used to be traveling all the time. And he said then, discipline के लिए boarding school में डालते थे कि घर में तो खराब हो जाएगा ये, being the youngest, they'll spoil him, and he will have no control because I keep traveling. And his brothers are now kind of college में हैं, वो तो याशी करने घूम जाते हैं, तो ये अकेला यहाँ घर में रहेगा ना, खराब हो जाएगा ये. So then he put me in boarding school there, in modern school. My father wanted to send me to England to school. He planned to, he was thinking this is one of these public schools like Harrow, Eton and all that, etc. My father was quite wealthy, he had a lot of money. So then he said, अच्छा तो जेनी बच्चा है तो वहाँ तो मीट बनता है उन स्कूलों में, तो मेरा बच्चा वो मीट अंडा खाना शुरू कर देगा. Because he used to go to Calcutta very often. Calcutta was the business guard of India at that time. And India had only 2 steel plants, both in Bengal, the Martin Burn, which is now called Indian Iron and Steel Company in Calcutta, and then Jamshedpur Tata. So that was his kind of his, his beat, so to call. And then there used to kind of meet all these people. So, so he got very advanced ideas, So then he heard this name, अच्छा नेहरू कहाँ गए थे पढ़ने, ये कौन गए थे पढ़ने, वहाँ कौन जाता है पढ़ने. तो they must have told him कि जी वहाँ तो सारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर पढ़ने जाते हैं. So then he thought that let me send my son also there. But then he found out कि अच्छा हम तो जैनी लोग हैं, तो वो तो वहाँ तो मासंदा लोग खाते हैं, मेरा बेटा कहीं मासंदा खाना शुरू कर दे. So he nixed the idea. But then he said for college he will definitely send me. We were a very excited generation, newly independent and all that. And I don't know about now, but those days the schools are very, very, very good. They're very good teachers, very dedicated teachers. You all have fresh ideas from all over the world coming in. And I was very fond of reading, right from childhood. So मैं तो सारे novels सारे पढ़ता रहता था, Even some of the classics I read when I was still in school. So I had all this, I knew about all these cities, Paris and Rome and London and this thing, that thing, and all the French writers, the English writers, So I was totally excited, when I was like, I couldn't wait, to get there. And then of course, like when my itinerary was made, see, उस time तो एक ही airline थी, Air India. It was one of the top airlines in the world, Because I think in the third world, सिर्फ हमारे पास ये airline थी बस. Singapore तो बाद में बने हैं, they just screwed up our leaders, you see. We had a big head start on all these people. They used to look up to us, you see. So then you see, at that time, the airline used to act almost like your travel agent, you see. So whenever you were like in London or Rome or Geneva or all that, so so the airline was your post office. कि आपने चिट्ठी भेजनी है ना मुझे, उस टाइम चिट्ठी होती थी या टेलीग्राम होते थे, तो they were sent to the care of Air India, so and so thing. And then so I think my flight was Cairo, and then Rome. The Rome Olympic was on. At that time. तो हम तो काले लोग सुनते थे ओलंपिक के बारे में, तो So Rome Olympic was on at that time. And then of course we were all these Hollywood oriented kids, na? So that big romance of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. So हमारे पास किताब वहाँ magazines आती थी, like Life magazine, Time, so we used to have all the gossip about what is happening. And of course we were not encouraged to see very many Hindi films unless they were really very good ones. हमारे तो जो once a month the cinema used to be usually a British film or an American film, So then, she was shooting with Cleopatra. So Eddie Fisher was a very good singer, the husband at that time of Elizabeth Taylor. So she was break. So there's all this excitement, because shooting in Rome, Cinecittà, this film city. So anyway, so I had got all this, reservation. I was staying in a pension, in Rome. That was the pensions were like bread and breakfast place. But the whole thing used to bread and breakfast, for everyone. तो वहाँ हम ठहरे हुए थे. तो ओलंपिक की वो ओपनिंग सेरेमनी हुई. तो हमने पूछा जाकर कि भाई हमें टिकट मिल सकता है इसका कि नहीं मिल सकता. तो उन्होंने कहा जी मिल सकता है, लेकिन it's only in the most expensive stalls. So I quickly calculated, I said, अच्छा भाई ठीक है. Suddenly, I was a complete vegetarian, no अंडा even, Janie's son. हमने कहा ठीक है, 2 slice bread कम खा लेंगे. तो ये तो जाना ही जाना जरूर है. तो I got this ticket to see the opening ceremony. And guess who's sitting at 3 rows in front of me? Elizabeth Taylor and Eddie Fisher. And जी हम तो जब वापस आए हमने फटाफट पोस्ट कार्ड खरीदे, सारे दोस्तों को चिट्ठी लिखी, सालों लोग हैं, तो मैं तो वहाँ एलिजाबेथ टेलर को देख के चुका हूँ in Rome, So my friends still remember these postcards from Rome sent by me, So I was so innocent, I had this city, because I knew these cities in my mind, you see, because of my reading. So I knew about Geneva, and I knew about Paris, and I knew about Rome, and I knew about London. So then it was Cairo, then it was Rome, then I think I went to Geneva, Zurich, then to Paris, and then to London, then to America, Nobody used to send their son, we will also tell you, after school to study abroad. तो आपने बहुत पढ़ने जाना है ना, पहले BA कर लो, फिर शादी कर लो, फिर भेजेंगे तुम्हें. नहीं तो सारी तुम्हें गोरी पकड़ के वहीं रख लेगी. This was real thinking. There's no you can laugh at today. तो जी वही हुआ जब मेरी मदर ने, my father passed away. तो जब मेरी मदर ने जब फैसला हो गया जाने का, तो जी वो पहले क्या थी, वो तुम्हारे गांव से या छोटे शहर से तुम्हारी बरादरी के जो एल्डर्स थे उनकी पंचायत होती थी. तो जी वो हमारे पंचायत दिल्ली पहुंच गई. We were saying at Aswali Road at that time. दिल्ली पहुंच गई ये पंचायत कि देवकी तूने इसको नहीं बेचना, ये मुंडा उत्थे रह जाना है, वापस नहीं आना. और उस दिन मुंडे कुड़ियां नाचते हैं छाती से ना छाती मिलाकर, शराब पींदे हैं ते सिगरेट पींदे हैं, ये मुंडा बिल्कुल बर्बाद हो जाएगा. My mother was sitting in a ghungat, because at that time women were ghungat. So my mother listened quietly and she said, देखो जी गल है, I respect you and all that, आप बड़े हो, but he has to go because his father wanted it. So I'm not going to stop him from going. So what I'm saying is that times have changed so much. Look, to me also it sounds funny, but there's the reality. So when I heard about these guys are coming from Malerkotla, I said, I was telling my brothers, ki hoega, कि देखो जी तुम रोकना नहीं, बीबी नू बोलो, बिल्कुल नहीं करन देना, I was in a panic, so I was already stopping. So the compromise was my older brother's friend, also Jain, was a professor in a small college in a place called Evansville, Indiana. Okay. So the compromise was इसको वहां भेजेंगे पहले 2 साल, so that he will keep an eye on me. कि मीट ना तो नहीं खा रहा, I'm not smoking, drinking, And the first 2 years I went there. But then, that place was too small for me, na? So then from there I moved to UCLA, California. Now I'm talking about 1960, right? So then I'm talking of then I went to 62. I went to after finishing my term school year. Then after that summer holiday, which I spent in New York selling encyclopedias door to door, So we have 62. Now the hippie movement is really a phenomena. I think its date is about 65, 64. The free speech movement starts with a student called Mario Savio, who was at Berkeley. क्या था कि the campus police came on Berkeley to arrest the student. तो first time students ने उनको कॉप को गिरा लिया, गाड़ी को, तो वहां से free speech movement शुरू हुई. You see, so same time the Vietnam War was going on. Then from there the whole thing kind of from the free speech movement, then the civil rights, Martin Luther King and all were active. So then they all kind of gelled into one movement, And same thing about this, I was. Did you watch this television serial called Bridgerton? Anyway, so even at that time in Britain, late 19th century, if a girl was in a closed room with a guy, it was like she would be exercised there to get married, So then uske baad, then this whole thing started. Then of course the drugs came at the same time. The drugs came before, because before there was a movement called the beatnik generation. Jack Kerouac, Allen Bill Ginsberg and all that. So the drugs and all came with them actually, William Burroughs, the heroin and all that. So that was like almost 2.5 years later from my first entry into America, 4.5 years later. Yeah, okay. Two and a half years from my Indiana to California thing, yeah. See, the hippie movement was driven by upper middle class, white, educated kids. See? So there's enormous intellectual ferment also, fervency also, So it was like, so all these, we had read all the great classics and all the great, writers, thinkers of the era, So it was not driven by like a bottom up or top down. It was an upper middle class kids who had been brought up with great pampering. They were called the baby boomers. क्या था कि ये जो अपना 39-40 में वॉर शुरू हो गया, तो वॉर के टाइम पर क्या था कि ये इन लोगों को वॉर में जाना पड़ गया, हाँ, so they had to delay their marriage later, हाँ. So when they came back from the war, they had all these GI bills and all that, The government paid for them to go to get a college education also. So these kids were the war kids, post-war kids, you see. So they brought up. So at that time, America went with a great passion into getting material prosperity. Because before the war, they had seen the depression. So all these 2-3 decades of deprivation, and now this post-war prosperity. So materials became very important. Ghar, gaadi, food. They shouldn't be deprived of anything, clothes. Because America had this from 29 depression to the war, 42. 2 decades, one generation was, had been brought up in want or in delayed gratification. So that is what it was driven by. It was, so there was a lot of passionate discussion of ideas and new ideas and, and classical, political thinkers, etc., etc., Well, you see, I was in the middle of it, nah. Because half my friends became hippies. You see, so and I was inclined that way. But my problem was my visa, student visa, then my green card. Once I started working, I got a green card. Because that time was the big space pushed to the Americans lost out to the Russians in the first satellite in space. It was called the Sputnik 59, because I still remember that we used to still go on the roof of modern school to watch this try to catch the Sputnik in the sky. Then they lost out putting the first man into space. Yuri Gagarin was the first one. So then they said, Salam, we'll put the first man on the moon. So then this huge push came. They started with Kennedy actually, then he got shot. But continued with Johnson. And this huge move came into the space program, where they put huge amounts of money, the government did, with the contracts, of course. So then at that time, is when and all your kind of, your microchips, was much later. That time there used to be chips. There used to be semiconductors this big and all that. So then from there the whole thing came, So then so at that time there was a shortage. They were grabbing every engineer they could. And I was one of the top engineering schools. UCL is amongst the top 5 in the world, engineering school, electronic engineering, not overall, but So then the companies would get you your clearance and your green card. You see, because they needed you. Well, that's when they opened up the whole immigration policy. Pehle kya tha? Their immigration policy on country quotas, which was completely racist. Like the Anglo-Saxons were first, you see, then and so on, so forth, So that's when they also opened up the immigration policy on merit basis, you see. So then I was afraid of that also. कि साला मुझे तो मेरा green card लेके मुझे घर ना भेजने. So I was this kind of this split personality who used to be an engineer in the daytime and a hippie at night, you see. So that always knew I was going to come back. But I was supposed to come back after my bachelor's degree. Then I came back after working for 5 years in America, you see. So I was there for a total of almost 11 years. Yeah. So that I always knew I was going to come back to India.